All right, so we're diving into a pretty wild story today.
Definitely wild.
Telepathy, a guru who can seemingly vanish whenever he wants.
Impressive.
And a skeptical friend who is in for a massive shock.
You could say that.
Ready to jump in?
Absolutely.
Great. So the source material for this deep dive is an excerpt from Pasted Texts.
Right, chapter 19.
Which focuses on the experiences of the author and his friend Dejan.
Yeah, and it's not just some fantasy tale, you know? It's a personal account that makes you really question the nature of reality.
And how much we actually perceive.
Exactly.
Now, you've mentioned that this excerpt centers around the author, his guru, Sri Yukteswar.
Yes.
And his friend Dejan.
Yeah.
Let's start with Dejan, because you pointed out that he's wrestling with some pretty intense atheistic doubts.
Yeah, he is.
What do you think is at the root of that kind of skepticism? Because it seems like a pretty key part of the story.
What's interesting, isn't it? Some people seem naturally inclined to embrace the idea of a reality beyond what we can see and touch. But others, like Dejan, well, they resist it.
Right.
Maybe it's a fear of the unknown, or maybe it's a need for concrete evidence before accepting something as true.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Whatever the reason, it makes his eventual transformation even more powerful.
Oh, absolutely. Because you have to wonder, if we're hardwired to resist anything that challenges our understanding of the world, what does that say about our potential for growth and discovery?
Oh, that's a great question. Because if we're just clinging to what we think we know, we might miss out on an entire universe of possibilities.
Exactly. So we have our author, who's already a follower of Sri Yukteswar.
Yes.
And then we have Dejan, our resident skeptic.
Right.
They're both students at Serampore College. And I understand their routine involves visiting Sri Yukteswar's hermitage after classes.
Yeah, they would go regularly.
But this routine gets disrupted when Sri Yukteswar is unexpectedly summoned to Calcutta.
Right. And remember, this is before instant communication.
Oh, yeah, good point.
So keeping in touch relied on letters and postcards.
Which leads us to the first twist in the story.
Okay.
The author gets a postcard from Sri Yukteswar informing him that he'll be back on Wednesday.
Right.
And to meet him at the 9.00 train.
Seems straightforward enough.
Right. But then the author receives something else.
What's that?
A telepathic message from Sri Yukteswar.
Oh boy.
Changing the meeting time.
Telepathy. Now that's where even the most open-minded person might pause.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
So what was Dejan's reaction to this?
That's what I want to know.
Dejan, true to form, completely dismisses the idea of a telepathic message.
Of course he does.
And decides to stick with the original plan from the postcard.
Tangible proof.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, most of us would probably be pretty skeptical too.
Right. It's understandable.
But then things get even more bizarre.
Oh yeah.
Okay, tell me more.
So, picture this. The author's alone in his room, probably thinking about the postcard and the telepathic message.
Right.
When something truly remarkable happens.
Okay, I'm on the edge of my seat.
Sri Yukteswar materializes right there in the room.
Wait, hold on. Materializes like poof, he's just there.
Yeah.
This isn't like a shadowy figure or a dream, right?
No, not at all. The author describes feeling the texture of Sri Yukteswar's robes and shoes.
Wow.
Hearing his voice clearly. He even says he could feel the pressure of his guru's toes inside his shoes.
Okay, hold on. So this is like a full-on materialization.
Yes. Vivid detail. It's as if you're right there in the room with them.
Wow. Now I really understand why Dejan was so skeptical.
Yeah.
This goes way beyond anything I've ever experienced.
Most people haven't experienced anything like this.
Okay, so what happens next? Does Sri Yukteswar explain how he just teleported into the room?
Well, no. Instead of an explanation, he simply tells the author that his business in Calcutta is finished.
Okay.
And that he will be on the 10.0 train to Serampore.
Oh, so he's changing the arrival time.
He is. And he even described how he'll be arriving preceded by a young boy carrying a silver jug.
So he changes the time and gives a very specific detail. It almost seems like he's trying to prove something to the author.
It's possible.
Or maybe even preparing him for Dejan's reaction.
Right. He might need some convincing.
So then what? Does he just hang out and wait for Dejan?
Not quite. As suddenly as he appeared, Sri Yukteswar vanishes.
He just disappears.
Gone, with a strange rumbling sound.
Oh, wow.
Leaving the author in complete shock and disbelief.
I mean, I would be too. This is crazy. So meanwhile, we have Dejan completely oblivious.
Right.
Waiting for the 9.0 train.
A train that Sri Yukteswar is definitely not on.
This is where it gets really interesting.
It does, doesn't it?
We have this clash between skepticism and faith, between what we think we know and what we're willing to believe.
Exactly.
So Dejan's at the station waiting for that 9.00 train,
Right.
completely unaware of everything that just happened.
Yep.
I can only imagine his face when that train pulls in and Sri Yukteswar is nowhere to be found.
Well, it's a key moment for sure.
Yeah.
Dejan returns not just disappointed, but probably a little smug about being right.
Oh, yeah. Like, see, I told you so.
Exactly. Yeah. And meanwhile, the author is trying to process this insane experience.
I mean, come on. How do you reconcile witnessing something that seems to defy all the laws of nature?
Right. It's mind-boggling.
I think I'd be questioning my sanity at this point.
Understandable.
Maybe he ate something that disagreed with him?
Perhaps. But I'm really curious about how he convinces Dejan to go back to the station for the 10.0 train after all that.
Yeah, like, how do you even begin to explain that?
Well, it's where the author's faith in Sri Yukteswar really comes through. He insists they go to the 10.0 train, certain that Sri Yukteswar will be there.
So despite his own internal struggle, he's completely convinced.
Absolutely. And you can really sense the tension between Dejan's skepticism and the author's conviction.
Oh, I bet. And I'm guessing Dejan is still giving him a hard time about the telepathy thing.
Oh, totally. The author says Dejan continued to mock him on their way to the station. But here's where it gets really interesting. The 10.0 train arrives.
Okay.
And just as Sri Yukteswar foretold,
No way.
there he is, walking calmly behind a young boy carrying a silver jug.
Wow, even I'm having trouble wrapping my head around this. So what's Dejan's reaction? Is he finally convinced?
The author describes him as completely speechless, dumbfounded. That initial skepticism crumbles in the face of undeniable proof.
I mean, what else can you do when you see something like that? It really makes you think about the limitations of our perception.
It does. How we rely on tangible evidence.
We build our understanding of the world on our experiences and what we've been taught.
Right. But then what happens when we encounter something that completely shatters those notions?
It challenges everything we thought we knew.
Exactly. And that's the beauty of this story, I think. It forces us to consider that there might be more to reality than we currently understand.
That there's so much more out there that we just can't grasp.
And Dejan's transformation is a perfect example of that. He goes from mocking the author to demanding an explanation.
Yeah, I wonder if part of his resistance came from a fear of having his whole worldview turned upside down.
And possibly. It's one thing to be curious about the unknown, but it's another to have it thrust upon you in such a dramatic way.
I get that. It can be unsettling. But you said something earlier about embracing uncertainty.
I did.
Do you think that's the key to unlocking a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe?
Could be. What if acknowledging that we don't have all the answers is actually the path to greater knowledge?
Interesting. So this whole concept of telepathy and materialization.
Pretty mind-blowing, right?
Absolutely. Even if we accept that the author's account is true, are there any scientific or philosophical theories out there that try to explain this kind of phenomena?
Well, there are a few theories floating around, but nothing concrete.
Like what?
Some physicists have explored the idea of quantum entanglement,
Okay.
where particles are linked so they can influence each other instantly, regardless of distance.
Interesting.
Others have proposed theories like morphic resonance.
Morphic resonance. What's that?
It suggests that there are fields of information that connect all living things.
Okay.
But whether any of these theories actually explain telepathy or materialization, well, that remains to be seen.
It's definitely fascinating to consider the possibilities.
It is. Even if we can't fully explain how these things are possible, the fact that they're being explored at all,
Yeah.
it means we're pushing the boundaries of what we thought we knew about reality.
I'm curious, though, about Sri Yukteswar's motivation. Why reveal himself in such a dramatic fashion?
That's a great question.
Was it just to prove a point to Dejan? Or was there something more going on?
Well, I think there are multiple layers to consider. On one hand, it could be seen as a test of faith for the author. Could he trust Sri Yukteswar's words even when things seemed impossible?
Like, do you believe in me enough to accept this?
Exactly. But I think it goes deeper than that. Sri Yukteswar as a spiritual teacher.
Right.
He's guiding his students towards a greater understanding of themselves and their place in the universe.
I see.
And sometimes a profound experience, even a shocking one.
Yeah.
It can be the catalyst for a major shift in consciousness.
So it's not about the spectacle itself,
No.
but about what that experience triggers within the individual.
Exactly. And for Dejan, this experience cracked open his skepticism. It created space for him to see the world in a new way.
You know that line he says after seeing Sri Yukteswar arrive?
The one about universities being like kindergartens.
Yeah, that one, it really highlights the limitations of our conventional ways of knowing.
Doesn't it? You realize there are levels of understanding that go beyond textbooks and lectures.
It's like what we were talking about earlier, the importance of being open to uncertainty.
Absolutely.
It's a key theme that keeps coming up.
If we cling too tightly to what we think we know, we might miss out on something truly extraordinary.
And who knows? Maybe we all have the potential to experience something that defies our current understanding of reality.
Now that's a thought-provoking idea. Where do we go from here? What other insights can we get from this incredible story?
That's a good question. We've only scratched the surface.
We have. There's still so much to unpack, especially when it comes to the implications of this experience for Dijin's spiritual journey.
Right. His journey is just beginning.
Exactly. Shall we delve deeper?
So we've been talking about this incredible story from pasted text.
Right.
And how it pushes us to rethink what's truly possible. Telepathy materialization.
A skeptical friend getting a front row seat to the impossible.
It's a lot to take in.
It really is.
Yeah.
And I think what makes it so powerful is that it's not just about these events, you know?
Right.
It's about the transformation they spark in the people involved.
Exactly. It's like those events become a catalyst for deeper exploration
Of consciousness.
and spirituality. We left off with Dijin's reaction to seeing Sri Yukteswar at the station.
Exactly as predicted.
What happens next? Does he demand an explanation?
Oh, he does. And it's so clear. His whole worldview has been shattered. He goes from mocking the author
Yeah,
to basically admitting that everything he thought he knew feels small.
compared to what he just witnessed.
Exactly. He even compares universities to kindergartens.
Wow, that's a pretty powerful statement.
It is. It's like sometimes seeing really is believing.
But what about Sri Yukteswar? Does he offer any explanation for his abilities?
Well, he does acknowledge sending a telepathic message to Dijin.
Interesting. So he was aware of Dijin's skepticism.
It seems that way. And maybe even orchestrated this whole thing.
To break through that skepticism?
Possibly. But it is for a detailed explanation.
Right.
He doesn't really give one. And I think that's part of the point.
So it's not about having all the answers.
No.
It's about being open to the mystery.
Exactly. Sri Yukteswar, as a spiritual teacher,
Yeah,
he's more focused on guiding his students on a journey.
of self-discovery.
Yes. Rather than giving a scientific breakdown of his powers.
So he understands that sometimes the deepest teachings,
They come through direct experience.
not intellectual understanding.
Right. It's like he's saying, don't get caught up in the how.
Focus on the what.
Yeah. The fact that these things are possible
Yeah.
and what that means for your understanding of reality.
I think there's a good lesson in there for all of us.
Definitely.
We live in a world that values logic and reason, which is important, but sometimes we need to step outside of that box,
And embrace the unknown.
even if it doesn't make sense right away.
Exactly.
This story also really highlights the role of a teacher or mentor
Yes.
in our spiritual growth.
Absolutely. Sri Yukteswar didn't just lecture Dijin about his limited perception.
Right.
He created an experience that forced Dijin to confront it head on.
Sometimes we need more than just words.
We do. We need something that shakes us up,
A catalyst.
that opens us to new possibilities.
And that's what Sri Yukteswar represents in this story,
The wise guide.
challenging his students to expand their consciousness.
And see a bigger picture of reality.
You keep mentioning this idea of expanding consciousness.
Yeah.
What does that even mean?
So in many traditions, expanding consciousness means going beyond our limited perspective,
Okay.
our egocentric view,
Right.
and connecting with something larger than ourselves.
Something bigger.
Yes. It's about recognizing that we're all interconnected.
And tapping into a deeper awareness. It sounds like what Dijin went through.
It does, doesn't it?
He started with a very narrow view of reality. And through this encounter with Sri Yukteswar,
His perspective just blew wide open,
like he glimpsed a different reality.
and in doing so expanded his own consciousness.
It's pretty mind-blowing. This whole story raises so many questions.
I'm sure our listeners have some too.
What would you say is the key takeaway from this account?
If I had to pick one,
Yeah.
it would be the power of open-mindedness. Dijin's transformation shows us that even the biggest skeptics
Yeah.
can change their perspective when they're confronted with something extraordinary.
It's a reminder that we don't have all the answers.
Not even close.
And there's always more to learn and discover
Always.
Maybe there are possibilities out there that we haven't even imagined.
Maybe we just need to be a little more like Dejan.
Willing to let go of our preconceptions.
And approach life with curiosity and wonder.
Who knows what amazing things we might find?
You never know.
Well, this has been a fascinating deep dive into a truly remarkable story.
Definitely thought-provoking.
It's made us think about the nature of reality.
Our own limitation.
And the power of human potential.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure exploring this with you.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Until next time.
Keep exploring.
Keep questioning.
And stay open to the infinite possibilities
that surround us.
Thank you for listening till the end. Please subscribe, turn on the notifications, like, comment, and share with your friends. This will help more listeners to discover our channel and content.